Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Are you a victim of the timeshare trap and think there's no way out? I'm Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, and I'm here to tell you that there is a way out. I will send you a timeshare exit information kit absolutely free, explaining how the timeshare industry works and your options for cancellation.
Get the facts. For your free timeshare exit info kit, go to iCancelTimeshare.com. That's iCancelTimeshare.com. iCancelTimeshare.com.
Good morning. It's Friday, Rochester today. Andy Brownell on News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM. And it is already time for our monthly check-in with MNDOT Mike. Mike Dougherty with the Minnesota Department of Transportation. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, good morning, Andy.
Good to see you again.
Yes.
Last time we talked, we were like, oh, it's still summer. It's our last blast of summer. And, well, it's still fairly warm out, but last week it sure felt like summer still.
Yeah, I was going to say it felt like we were back in August and which I'm a fan of fall, so it's a little disorienting and a little disturbing, but I feel like it eventually arrives. It's just a question of when. So,
well, I hope it is an extended fall. How's that?
Yeah, yes.
That you get to enjoy your autumn for a while before we move on to the next season.
I would like that, yeah.
So I was doing quite a bit of traveling over the previous week, and I did enjoy Highway 52.
Nice.
The new pavement,
yes,
all the way heading north was, it's nice to have. It's been so accustomed to construction work in that corridor to have no construction work taking place. It was, wow, this is nice. So I finally got to that stage.
It really is, yeah. And it gives you a kind of a taste of, hopefully as we continue. But yeah, when there's good pavement and, the stuff that they put down, that should be lasting us for decade upon decade. So, it's good investment. And I think that's what we hope to do. And it's nice when we have those opportunities and the funding to do so.
I did notice that here in southeastern Minnesota, you still have that rough stretch heading south. Over by Zumbrota, kind of, right? Yep.
Yeah, there's that. But I think in looking at that, they determined while there wasn't a programmed project coming up, I think the feeling was that the ride was such that we're looking at doing kind of a mill and overlay next year. So it'll that wasn't necessarily the plan, but we had some projects move out of 2025 into other years. And so suddenly you still have funding, but not for projects. So they looked at what could fit, maybe some of our pavement needs. And so that's one of the ones that folks will see pop up. It'll be, it'll squeeze things down to a single lane just on the northbound side going, north out of Zumbrota.
Right there,
through that stretch. But overall, you'll still, there won't be a detour or anything like that, but we'll probably have more. This will be one of our time or points to chat about in the future as we get more detail for putting that project together. But like I said, it's just a overlay. It'll get us through, probably 7 to 10 years, kind of in that range before something significant. But it's a good investment for right now, just given the condition of the pavement.
Smooth it out.
Yes.
Okay. So on my travels, the one major project we ran into was I-35. I think it's Cloquet area, a bridge replacement on 35 north. And I'm looking at, it was like summer when we drove through there, and they were working like mad. They had a lot of work left to do they were just pouring the bridge deck at this point. And they have the approaches up to the bridge to be finished and a whole bunch of other things. I thought, you guys are cutting it close on time. It's almost October, but I suppose you have some projects around here that still need to be wrapped up before the winds blow.
Yeah, and that one up there, I don't know. I can't remember exactly because that's in a different district, but there was one that they announced that will continue into next year, I think, because of some delays. I'm not sure if it's that specific one, but that's one to, like you said, you're more prone now to make some trips north on that highway than you used to.
Yes, I am.
And so it's one to keep on your radar, and just a good reminder for folks that, as you head out to really scout out, even in the summer, but obviously in the winter, what the conditions are like, what things are on your path to where your destination is.
Yeah, the 511 app was very useful.
Good.
Especially when we got to highways we weren't accustomed to. Because while we ventured to Duluth quite a bit, and maybe the North Shore, we got a lot closer to the Canadian border than I really wanted to this later year. But it was still summer, all the way up to Vermilion, Lake Vermilion. And, I'll tell you this much. They built those highways for the busy tourist season. When you're not up there when it's busy, those wide 4 lanes going all the way up to the hinterlands of northern Minnesota are awful nice to drive on when there's not traffic.
Yeah. So, but I was going to say around here, if folks are still traveling around, we're just about wrapped up Highway 30 between Chatfield and Stewartville. That was a repaving project that, came after. We did some bridge work last year, some replacement. They should be about shipshape there and opening up here. I know there was a small amount of work over in West Concord on Highway 56, just some paving through town, wrapping things up here at the end of this, basically now. So that's good. Down in Leroy, Highway 56, we opened up a stretch of the road in town 2 weekends ago, and so that's been good. There's still some striping they'll do. They do some temporary striping, but the main focus is about 2 blocks downtown. So, folks are going to Sweets Hotel for food or whatever. You can still get there. It's kind of nice because you can come in right on the side and park, still get around. But, we're doing that reconstruction as part of work with the city of Leroy. So we've replaced all that sewer, sanitary sewer, the storm sewer, the water lines, all that stuff. It's a good investment. But, I was down there, probably like 3-4 weeks ago when they were down to the bottom of, the road and just starting to put all those lines in going up. And it's, you look at it and you just think, there's no way. There's no way this will ever be fixed. And you come back a week later and it's amazingly it's closer, and then poof, they've got the base down and everything, and then they're starting to pave, and then they've got to do concrete work on the side to get the curb in. But those are all things that are finally coming together. And, if we continue with this good weather, relatively mild, minimal moisture, everything's on track to be done, right at the end of October, of that very early November. And as you kind of look wider, our interchange at I-90 and Highway 52, folks will see some stuff. This year was mostly, to get some things done, but it really is more of a prep. We started in July. They got those crossover lanes paved. They did some culvert work. But next year is really where you're going to see that disruptive, intensive construction where they replace the eastbound I-90 bridge. They build that flyover ramp from southbound 52 to eastbound I-90. Some of that stuff will really be where we'll be having some Highway 52 detours of, quite some length, those sorts of things. But for the most part, it's good. We had a high school physics class down there at the construction site this week. Zambroda Mazeppa, physics teacher. We had one of her classes out a couple of years ago at Highway 52. They come down. Our project engineers talk about physics, just physics, math, overall everything that they use in their job, and kind of point out the construction site. We've got a good, safe place for the students to observe and understand, but not get too close to the action as well. So, it's kind of fun to hear our folks really talk in those terms with students, and hopefully we'll maybe come out with some engineers or construction inspectors or others out of that in the future.
I saw that they had put the earthworks in, the dirt piled up now for that.
Yes.
I guess flyover ramp is what you call it?
Yeah. Yeah, what they do is they call it a surcharge. So they pile additional soil on top of where that is going to go to compress, compact, really get as much settlement out as they can of that soil before they start doing any paving, that sort of work.
Sure.
So, and that takes a length of time, and they've got some gauges out there that measure kind of the rate of compaction over how it settles over time, and kind of read of, how is it going, what the moisture is, where things are. And they've got, obviously some standards of when that compaction and compression, eventually settles and it's not moving anymore, then it's okay to remove that surcharge soil, and that gets it ready for next year as well. But we see that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. A lot of anything
big
that's going
earthwork, that'll be moved out of the way to put pillars in, I take it.
Yes, yeah, and some of that, the pillars and the ramp, anything that's going to
interesting
rest on that. You see that a lot with bridges, especially, but other areas as well, depending on, that's where we do a lot of that pre-work. So when we were talking about this project 3-4 years ago, we had guys drilling into the soil down deep to get, readings in terms of what was there, and based on what they know, how to best approach that in building it and making sure that we don't get uneven settlement or surprising settlement. Occasionally we will still see something like that, but it's pretty rare. They get a pretty good read on it and do a lot of testing of the soils to understand what's underneath in terms of how to approach it.
There's your physics class right there.
Yeah.
Okay, 90 really quickly at Austin. Are they going to button that thing up for the winter pretty soon?
Yep. We're just about, I'd say probably another week or so. They should have the Highway 105 Oakland Avenue Bridge reopened. Okay. That's the one on the far west side. And that's a key milestone because then we can move down to 4th Street, which is the main bridge there at the cemetery that gets you to the north side, to the shopping and hotels, to the south to kind of go into town. Then they'll do a demolition on that bridge here mid-October. So I don't know if they've quite set the date yet, but I would say it's potentially next weekend. So where we do that, about Friday at 8 p.m., we close the thing. They do the demolition all through the weekend, basically working 24 hours a day, and then get the I-90 reopened by 5 a.m. on Monday. So we'll have more of an announcement when they've got it for sure locked in. But
there's a frontage road, right?
What's that?
There's a frontage road that you can use for the traffic at that location, if I remember correctly.
The westbound will be able to run people up the ramp and then down onto
just the other
ramp.
side. Okay.
Yeah. On the south side, there isn't quite that because we still have the Cedar River Bridge for eastbound traffic is not open yet. So that's where people will be detoured off in advance. They come through town, follow a county road, and then you pop out on the east end of Austin. Because it's I-90, it's interstate traffic. So it's really, we've got to utilize roads that are suitable or best. Sometimes there aren't the ideal detours, but at the same time, it's the best road we've got, and it's a short window of time, about 60 plus hours or so during a weekend where there's not as much traffic on I-90. But that'll be an announcement for people to watch. And then that 4th Street will be closed. They basically have 1 year from demolition to get it all open again. So they'll be doing work on into the winter. The contractor's still looking exactly what all they'll do and what they can do, but they want to get set up well for spring to then really do that building of setting the beams, and it's a single point urban interchange. So it's like the one on 19th Street here at Rochester. Yep. They're building one there. So if you look, that is a very wide interchange. So it's I can't remember how many beams. Some of those. I think the current bridge has about 6 beams, and I think we're going for this new one. It's like 21, 22 beams.
Oh, goodness.
Okay. So it's very wide because it allows multiple lanes of traffic to do the turn movements. You've got some wide pedestrian bike. So it's the city council, that was the design that they chose that we felt was feasible and still workable within the budgetary restrictions we have. But it'll be really something to watch, but kind of a challenge for folks that get around in Austin, because it is a main piece, but it'll be great when it's reopened about this time next year.
Okay, so there you go. There's your warning over the next week or so. Expect, if you travel that 90 corridor to Austin or points west and coming back, especially if you're coming back towards the east, that's where you're really going to see the
and it'll
detour.
Be that weekend time frame, that Friday night to Monday morning. So it's limited, but if you're traveling through there, it will affect you. Yeah.
Be ready. Okay.
Yes.
We'll take a break. We're with Mike Dougherty, Minnesota Department of Transportation. We call him MNDOT Mike. This is Rochester Today, News Talk 1340, KROC AM 96.9. Good morning. Welcome back. Rochester Today, News Talk 1340, KROC AM 96.9 FM. Andy Brownell along with Mike Dougherty with the Minnesota Department of Transportation, MNDOT Mike. Our monthly check-in to find out what's happening as far as transportation issues here in southeastern Minnesota. I noticed that I've received some emails from MNDOT about 'tis the season for burning stuff along our highways.
Yes.
Why? Maybe to start with, why do we do it?
Well, it's another way to manage the vegetation along there, and it speaks to kind of what's been planted in as we continue to grow. More plantings of like native grasses, native flowers that are well suited for that area are better handled with instead of mowing, the burning. The burning helps rejuvenate those types of plants, helps them kind of squeeze out more of the weeds, the noxious weeds. So we tend to do that. We're seeing more as projects go through. They have a specified seed type that they use in there, and it can be some native grasses and what that vegetation does is it holds the banks, the slopes of the ditches in place, and better resistant to erosion, which is important for the roadbed and all of that. But it's a way for us to better manage rather than using chemicals or mowing to do that. Last year, we have like a fall and a spring burning season. We burned about 33 miles of right of way, which isn't bad, but it's, when you've got several thousand miles of roadway, it's still a small percentage, but it continues to grow and I think is a nice way to manage that where it's suitable.
When you plant these wildflowers or whatever they may be, I take it that they are a species that doesn't grow very high. Is that part of the reason you
Yes.
you don't ever have to mow again?
Yeah, typically not. They might, mow close to the shoulder periodically, depending on where it is. But yeah, it doesn't reach a real, tall height, at least at those areas. It may down in the ditches, if they put some certain grasses, but most of it's in that smaller, probably, 2-foot range.
Sure.
And yet it's dense and it's got, some firm stalks in ways that can help catch snow as well, in the winter at a certain level. So it serves some good purposes as well as, it's just good for, pollinators and things like that as well. And I'm kind of the guy that likes to go, oh, that's beautiful. It's when you see like the black-eyed Susans and some of those out there, when they're blossoming, it looks nice as well, but it's not planted just to look nice, but I'd call it that secondary benefit. It's got a more functional benefit.
Is there a goal to more or less eventually replant all of the highway right away?
I don't know. I know typically what happens is it when we come through on a construction project, because we're going to be grading out some of the, a lot of the earthwork is going to be happening and getting the slopes done, that they look at what is most suitable for that area and kind of make that determination. So there's still a place for mowing and that, but if we can find a different way to manage it, like through the prescribed burning, we're using less equipment out there. It's just helpful in that way, and maybe frees up our folks to attend to other areas that might need, the mowing, or if there is spraying that's needed in certain areas to manage noxious weeds. That's, it's helpful that way.
When you do the burns, do you wait for wind conditions that will tend to blow the smoke away from the highway?
Yes. Yeah. It's really, all of our work to some degree is, across from MNDOT is weather contingent, but this is very much so. They're watching the wind. They're looking at the humidity levels in terms of, how that can help them manage the fire at the time. One of our folks, but 3 MNDOT folks overall were just, in August, we're up in northern Manitoba, part of an interagency firefighting team. So, they were fighting forest fires up there, but so we've got our folks that really have that expertise of managing, the prescribed burn, but have experience fighting, wildfires, as well. So they look at all those factors, just in terms of the location, like you said, the wind speeds, the moisture conditions, all of those have to be just right. So I remember last year we had a couple times where they were out, they'd get there and go, either things were,
sure,
there was a little more green underneath the brown vegetation, so it didn't work as well, so they had to go back and plan for a different day. So, yeah, but we really look for that safety because we don't want smoke blowing across the road. You will see signs that warn you that there could be that potential, but typically they'll set up in a way that, the winds are blowing, one way, so they will just burn that one side that will blow it off, towards the field or away from the driving area.
Safety first. Okay. We already have to take a break for news. We're with Mike Dougherty, Minnesota Department of Transportation, and we'll continue chatting with MNDOT Mike after this break on Rochester Today. News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96
News app.
Good morning and welcome back. Rochester Today, Friday morning. News Talk 1340, KROC AM 96.9 FM with Mike Dougherty with the Minnesota Department of Transportation. I'm Andy Brownell, and winter is inevitable.
It is. And it's in Minnesota.
We've had a really good run of weather, and we all know it's going to end. So it's October now. I suppose this is the time of the year MNDOT is preparing for the inevitable.
Yes. Yeah, really, our pace quickens. I think there are always pieces during the year where we're doing preparation, planning. Our road salt is often delivered in, June, May of that time frame, and we get the salt sheds full. But each year as we get closer to winter, there's the pace and the activity quickens. We've just had a number of our new drivers. It's 20 plus folks. I don't have the exact number. We're up at our snowplow operator training. They call it, because MNDOT loves acronyms, it's SPOT training. But they were up at Camp Ripley, and it's a really good session because they work with our very seasoned, experienced snowplow operators and supervisors to really talk about the equipment, how to handle it, how to maneuver it, all the different blades, and working on just being comfortable and precise with those big machines, and then the blades obviously that are pushed off to one side or the other. So a number of them have been up at Camp Ripley for that, different sessions, kind of that early. We want to make sure that the equipment and the people are there at a time when there's minimal likelihood that snow will arrive and they'll need to be called upon. So they'll be coming off that. This next week we do our snow and ice preparation meeting. So all of we've got 200 plus snowplow operators within our district here. They will all be in through meetings the next week, and it's all, everything from just understanding, how their contract works with the hours and things like that, to the equipment, to ensuring that they've done all the safety requirements, just a whole range of things that you want to make sure they're aware of. but you also want to touch on it before things get busy either. So they'll be doing that, and then it's more just fine tuning things after that. I've been out with our mechanic shop, and I've seen the snowplows coming through on some of the regular maintenance, making sure that that stuff's done, and the machines are ready. So it's just that kind of buildup that winter's going to be coming here. We hope it's off on the far horizon, but know that there have been times, in October where we've gotten socked with, varying levels of snow or ice, and I think that's even part of it is just as we start to get the temperatures dip down, those overnight temperatures will start to drop down below freezing. And then, as we've seen, probably in the last while here, some fog, that moisture in the air, and that overnight fog, it can settle on a bridge deck that's maybe, 5 degrees colder than the ground temperature because there's no insulation under that bridge. So there's the potential there for icing. And so sometimes people may notice, like, why are we out treating the roads with some brine? It's not freezing. Well, there were times probably, or at least the forecast said there was that potential, and we can't, kind of shrug and go, oh, yeah, we should have done this, if there's a crash. So, we're going to err on the side of caution and safety and maybe putting down some of that brine to pre-treat, whether it's a bridge deck or a ramp or something like that has the potential for any frost or freezing there. So it's they're going to be busy. They know they're going to be busy, and this is kind of gearing up now to kind of start flexing those muscles a bit.
You brought up October snowstorms, and I'm old enough that my mind immediately goes to 1991.
Yes.
And then I kind of chuckled to myself, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, for the young people, that would be probably the equivalent of me growing up in the 1970s, hearing about the great Armistice Day blizzard.
That's what I was thinking.
1940s, which was ancient history.
Yes. Yeah, that's about the right span. I've thought of that too, we heard about this horrible Armistice Day blizzard and the death and how it surprised people. And then we kind of experienced, the Halloween one wasn't as surprising, but I think, the magnitude in the end of just looking around going.
The storm was a lot worse than anybody anticipated.
Wow. Yeah.
We knew we were going to get a snowstorm. We didn't know we were going to get that kind of storm.
Yeah. And then just the aftermath as we went into winter and how a lot of that stayed put. We didn't have much melt time. It jumped right into winter and it was,
Bunch of old cronies talking now.
Yes.
But I was thinking about the new snowplow operators. And I imagine the training you can do can be quite extensive, but you really can't put the blade down and get the feel for what it's really like.
No. And you think about that, and that's really a lot of training. It's simulation or as close as you can get to it. But until they're pushing snow, and then even that snow can vary. If it's a light, low moisture snow, it's going to be billowing and flying around differently than, say, a very, moisture-laden snow that we might see, whether it's the beginning, those warm temperatures, or towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
That really affect, the effort of the plow.
It can change the direction of your vehicle when it's
the torque on the blades that they're pushing. So, until they actually get through a good cycle of different snowstorms, of varying, snow types, it's really, their training takes them to a certain point, but then you got to do the real thing and experience it. And, I'm thankful we've got some very seasoned snowplow operators that are good at sharing their wisdom and understanding and, kind of working up to making sure that, as best we can, these new operators are mentored and guided as much as they can. We're kind of fortunate to not have a huge, giant influx of new people, and we still have those seasoned, well-trained operators that can share that knowledge so that, as we transition through generations, that we're well covered as best we can.
The other one I had for you before we take a break, You mentioned you stock up the salt.
Yes.
In May and June. How could they possibly make a guess as to how much salt they're going to need when there's no really long-range forecasts available at that point?
Yeah, what we do is we look at those 5-year averages oftentimes. But obviously, if you look at last year, it doesn't pay to just go off of last year because that was pretty light.
Short, probably.
Yeah, but the 5-year average gives us a good reading. We are using more liquids than brine, so we're not using or potentially using as much salt.
Sure.
Because we're mixed that brine is more of a 23% saltwater mix. And then the contract allows to, the contract, we have to buy I believe it's about 80% of the contract. So, they have to guarantee 120% of that contract. So there's some lag in there. Room. Yeah. So we will get to buy as much as we need. And if it's a crazy winter and we're going through salt, we know, we're guaranteed, up 20% beyond what the contract was. And then likewise, when it's light like that, we've got to figure out where to store that extra salt that we agreed we'd buy. So it's, it tries to meet the needs both of the buyer and the seller.
And you're able to store it till the next season in those barns that you have? Yeah.
And periodically I'll see here in Rochester anyway, I know one of our folks that'll be out there with a big payloader kind of mixing it around, breaking it up. But we try to make sure it's not too clumped up. And so they've got some, that's on somebody's job list periodically to get out there, or they'll size up things and how it looks. And then obviously as we're getting closer to snow season, they're going to want to make sure that stuff is broken up and made as loose as possible. So it doesn't clump up in the trucks and it's easier to obviously scoop and dump.
I'm just thinking that's a job I don't want.
No,
mixing
but we've got
salt. No thanks.
Yeah, we've got some skilled operators that really get up there and do it well. And I marvel and think, if I was put in charge of that, I feel like I would be tipped over on my side.
Oh, I'm just thinking all the salt dust that's in the air. And
yes, it's
protecting your eyes and things like that. Okay, we do have to take a break. We'll be back in a moment with more of Mike Dougherty, Minnesota Department of Transportation. He is MnDOT Mike, and this is Rochester Today, News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM. Welcome back, everyone. It's Rochester Today. Andy Brownell, along with Mike Dougherty with the Minnesota Department of Transportation on News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM. Okay, I told you I've been driving all over the place. Riding in the passenger seat, being the co-pilot on the way up to the hinterlands up north. And we're coming up to St. Paul. And, of course, once we're getting close to the Lafayette Bridge, which I hate, I'm checking 511. And this is cool. There was a crash on Lafayette. So, here we go. I'm looking at real-time video of them clearing this wreck. And I'm going, they'll be cleared by the time we get there. That's amazing.
It is. And you're doing it right. You're the navigator. You're not the pilot looking at your screen. So, but that's what I like. We were, I had my adult kids were with me going up north last weekend, and in just a couple spots as we were venturing up that I'm not always familiar with, just kind of saying, hey, check on 511, pop the cameras on, look and see, what's the vehicle speed color on there, just giving us a sense, it's like, it's just a slowdown because it's a merge point on a couple, there are people coming off and moving on. It's not a crash. We'll get through there with minimal slowdown. But it's a good habit, now, especially as everybody's out and about for fall activities. And then especially so as we hit winter, of just, you can, we keep saying know before you go. You can look, you can see what are the conditions like. Our snow plows that we've been talking about, all of them are outfitted with cameras now. It takes a still shot about every 5 minutes of the right out over the hood of the snow plow. Right. So you can see what that snow plow operator sees. That gives you just that more visual, like, I'm in the 4x4 and I'm just driving this stretch. I'm comfortable with it. Or, I've got my older vehicle with rear wheel drive. I think I might just kind of wait until the plows get out and do a little more work. You can kind of make those decisions based on your own driving experience and your own vehicle. Even the importance of your trip. Does it have to happen now, or can it be delayed?
Yeah, you look at oftentimes 14 going west, and the wind starts howling, and you can look right at that snowplow picture and go, that's looking dicey.
Yes. Yeah, and we're getting more of those, cameras in, which is really great. 14 we've built that out to the west. I-35, there's been work. I don't know if those cameras have come on quite yet, but like south of Hope, which is like in that southern Steele County, from like Freeborn County line south. There's been a gap there, so you're going to see more cameras if you're traveling I-35. That's a busy place for a lot of travelers. So we're seeing that 52 up the corridor from our projects. That's been a nice addition, as well as more cameras have been added on there. So we're getting more, and we'll probably see more depending on, the importance or the volume of those highways. Those are factored into either a construction project or a separate project itself.
The other thing I enjoyed on our driving around, we went down into Bluff Country in northeast Iowa to visit friends, and there was a lot of Amish buggy traffic.
Yes.
On 52 through Fillmore and Houston counties, and the way that the highway has been widened now with these humongous shoulders, it made it so much less stressful to encounter the slow-moving vehicles.
Yeah, it's an official. It's the Amish buggy byway. So the legislature designated that, and we have really worked through the years to, like you said, it has much wider shoulders on 52, basically south of Preston.
Yes.
Going from Preston south of there, all the way to the border, and on into Houston County, that area. And there are signs, it's not, I think folks should look at those signs as warning signs, not like a quaint feature of the countryside. That, these are folks that live and work in this area, and their mode of transportation is on with a horse-drawn buggy. And so just to kind of be remembering that we're sharing the road, those shoulders are a good distance or width. They also, instead of a more thin layer that we often build on a shoulder because it's not a high traffic area, we do build up the shoulder of the road for those buggies because there's regular traffic on them. And one thing, still haven't quite figured out how best to treat them, but our folks were noting a certain kind of wear and tear on those shoulders.
I saw that there's almost ruts.
Yeah, and it's kind of for the cleated hoofs of the horses. They've got cleats on them. I was thinking it was more just the wheels, and there's a little bit of that, but it's more of just the cleating of the hooves to get some traction just on that blacktop as well as wintertime. So important to remember, especially if you're approaching a bridge, because sometimes the shoulders on those bridges may be tighter. And so that's to remember that, these are people in a very exposed vehicle.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So if you're coming up, to gauge, your speed, are you able to move over? Just to remember you're sharing the road, and they are in such a vulnerable area to really call into mind, all the safety things that we can do as motorists. We are also working with Fillmore County on some warning signs that may be placed eventually on some of the Fillmore County roads in certain areas like that where the buggies may have to move more into the travel lane to get across a bridge or someplace where there maybe is some guardrail that maybe squeezes them in, that there can be some warning signs like we've seen elsewhere that just detect their presence, and give a flashing sign to the motorists just as an additional heads up.
Like those approaching vehicles.
Yes.
Rural intersections.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Something like that can detect that. It still requires those drivers to be safe and aware and slow down and move over, but it gives you that additional reminder, just flash and warning that, hey, there is something present up there. I should be alert to it, but if I'm not, there's another warning to me to be looking around, scanning what's ahead. Is my speed safe to to approach this, or do I need to move over, and is it safe to move over? Those sorts of things that we should and typically do, but it's just another warning reminder for people that to pay attention.
The people who drive down there on a regular basis are very cognizant of this, but if you're not used to it,
yep,
it's something you really need to be aware of, because you'll come around a curve and there'll be a buggy there. There's a lot of curvy roads.
Yeah, especially, like you said, people that are new or not frequently traveling down there. But then, it's a good reminder to the locals as well. Don't be complacent. Just because you've driven that route the last 7 days and haven't encountered, a buggy or whatever, doesn't mean on that 8th day it will be. So you still need to be at your good driving game as well. But yeah, you're right. Especially fall time, orchards, leaf watching, good restaurants, concerts, whatever's going on in that beautiful bluff country down that way. Enjoy it, but also be, aware that you're sharing the road with those Amish buggies, but also, a number of motorcyclists too.
Bicyclists too in the fall.
Yeah, so just a reminder, we all share the road, and just to practice some politeness for others that, give them a break, let them get through. Everybody wants to get home safely and enjoy the beautiful surroundings that they're part of.
Absolutely. Mike, I wish we had more time, but we'll have to talk again in about a month.
Yes.
Hopefully we'll still be enjoying nice weather in a month.
Fingers crossed.
That's where I'm at right now, that's for sure. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Yes. Thanks, Andy.
Always appreciate it. He is MNDOT Mike Dougherty, the Minnesota Department of Transportation, and this is Rochester Today on News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.